Hey guys, welcome back to another story video. So today I'm going to be telling a real life story, and this is about my job. So when I say job, I do mean an actual real life job that I get paid to do, and I'm not talking about anything Minecraft related at all here. So my real life job is actually an event videographer, so that basically means that I go to live events and I set up and operate a camera during the event, and then I'll go back and edit it later. I actually work for a larger company, and the company I work for mostly records school events. So there's usually a lot of events that happen between March and June, not so much in July or really after the school year's over. So I don't actually have this job right now because there's nothing to film. Basically how it works is they'll schedule me to operate camera for a live event, and I'll show up at like the company headquarters, and whoever's in charge of the event will just take all the camera people over there. So I don't ever really have to drive anywhere myself. However, there was one time where I did have to drive myself, and that is what this story is going to be about. So this happened in April, and it was actually on a Friday, so I had school on this day. The event I was filming was a school event, and it would have been really simple if it was happening at my school, but it was actually happening at another high school in my district, and I'd actually never been to this school before, so I had no idea how to get there, but I didn't think it would be a big deal because I wouldn't have to drive there myself. Suddenly, in the middle of that day, I got a text from someone at the company, and I actually didn't have their number saved, so I didn't even know who this was, but they said that there was a change of plans, and I wasn't going to be meeting at the headquarters. I was going to have to meet at the school itself, which means I would have to drive from my school to this school, and I needed to be there at 5, and my school let out at 4:20. At that point, I started to panic because I had never been to this school and I was awful at navigation, and I still am. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a good driver. Well, actually, I failed the driving test the first time I took it, but I've never been in a car accident. My real issue with driving is that I have no sense of direction. So if I need to drive somewhere where I've never been before, I usually take like 10 wrong turns before I actually get it right. So I was smart, and during one of my classes where we had access to computers, I went to Google Maps and I started to memorize the route. There were only about 7 turns between my school and the other school, so it wasn't that complicated, but I decided to write down all the street names and turns just to make sure. Now, I would have just used Google Maps on my phone, but I have a pretty bad data plan. So Google Maps said the drive was only going to be 20 minutes, so it seemed like I'd actually be able to show up early because I had 40 minutes to get there if I left right when school ended at 4:20. But the problem is, my old high school had awful traffic in the parking lot because of construction going on. They're basically like adding a new wing to the campus. So it takes a really long time to get out of the parking lot unless you leave early. So I wasn't too worried because the last period of that day of school was astronomy, and the astronomy teacher is normally pretty chill about letting people leave early. In fact, usually in that class, like, school lets out at 4:20, so at like 4:12 there'd be people walking out. He'd even like see them walking out usually, and he wouldn't really do anything. And it just kind of was like this unsaid thing that you could leave early in this class. So I didn't think it was a big deal. So it got to 4:17, and I decided, like, okay, there's 3 minutes left, he's not gonna care, so I just gather up my stuff, and, you know, everyone's kind of standing around the door, so I walk, like, super determined, like, right towards the door, like, I am leaving right now. So I walk out, and I turn the corner, I'm like, yes, I got out, alright, we're gonna be fine, I'm not gonna be late, and then suddenly, I hear my name getting called behind me, and it's the teacher calling my name. He apparently didn't want me to leave. I guess I don't know, he just called my name, and, he said, like, come back in here. So I'm like, oh no, okay. So I turn around and I'm like standing in the doorway, and like the whole class is still standing there. They're all staring at me, and then the teacher just like lectures me for like the next 3 minutes about like why I can't leave. Like, me leaving creates a disruptive learning environment for everyone else or whatever. But finally the bell rang. It was 4:20. I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here as fast as possible, because otherwise I'm going to get stuck in traffic and I'm going to be late. But the problem is, the astronomy classroom is at the opposite end of the school from the parking lots, and it's upstairs. Basically, like, everyone at the school is trying to go out this door at the same time I am, and it's a Friday, so everyone's really anxious to leave. So I didn't get out very fast because it was really hard to get out. So finally, I get to the parking lot and I get to my car, So I pull out of the parking spot, and then I'm just completely blocked because there's just cars right there. I'm like, well, guess I can't get out. So I couldn't even like get into the line. I was starting to get really mad because at this point it was 4:30 and I knew I was going to be late at this point. Like there was no way I was going to show up on time with this traffic. So I went back to that number that had texted me. I just said like, hey, I'm going to be late. There's traffic. And I don't really remember exactly what I said. But by that time, the buses were already there and the buses were blocking the exit, so I couldn't actually leave. So finally at 5, I get out of the parking lot. I'm like, okay. So I left the parking lot, I turned right onto the street outside, I'm like, yes, finally, freedom, I don't have to wait in this stupid traffic anymore. And suddenly I get a call, it's coming through the car because my phone was plugged in, and it's actually from that number from the person at the company who was texting me. I'm like, oh yes, finally, they're calling me. I can explain what happened, and I can explain why I was late, and, it'll all be okay. So I pick up, and I just kind of hear footsteps. It's like someone's walking. I'm like, hello? I don't hear anything, I just hear footsteps, and then I hear like something brushing against something, and then I just hear like breathing, and I'm like really confused, like, wait, what, hello? Are you there? Hello? And no one says anything. So I'm like, wow, okay, looks like they just accidentally called me. I still don't know who it is, but they accidentally called me. I thought that maybe if I just kept yelling at the phone that maybe they'd hear it and talk to me, but after 6 minutes of random footsteps and random noises coming from somewhere I don't even know, I gave up and I just hung up the call. But at that point, I was just like really confused and distracted, and I got to my first turn, and on the direction sheet it said, street name, turn right. But I wasn't actually thinking properly, so I couldn't interpret what was on the sheet. So I actually turned left because I thought that right meant that I turned right off of that street and not onto it. So I turn left, and then I go left for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, wait, I was supposed to turn right. Well, I just wasted a bunch of time. Alright, I just need to turn around, and I need to figure out where I am. I had already gotten lost, even though the directions were right next to me. So I find a U-turn area in the median, and I just kind of like park there. So I open Google Maps to try to get the directions to the address, and it's loading, and it's starting to take a while to load, and then I'm wondering, wait, why isn't it loading? It should load. So I just put my phone down, and luckily, at that point I remembered that since I was using my mom's car, my mom has a GPS in the console, so I took that out, and I typed in the address to the GPS, and I hear the computer voice saying like where I need to go, but then suddenly I hear another computer voice also saying where I need to go, and I realized that it's coming from my phone, so I actually had the GPS and Google Maps telling me where to go. So basically, two different robot voices saying the same thing where I need to go. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. This isn't confusing at all. So I was like, okay, well that's kind of annoying, but as long as they're saying the same thing, it won't be an issue. So it turns out that it was an issue because apparently the GPS was programmed differently than Google Maps. So Google Maps and the GPS had decided on completely different routes. I get to a turn, and then I hear one voice say, turn left, and then the other one says like, keep going straight. So I'm like, okay, at first I was gonna turn left, but then the other voice says keep going straight, and I'm like, wait, what? Which one do I do? Oh no. And then I like almost crash into the median, and I end up going straight. So I'm like, okay, well, guess we're going straight. So I listened to the voice that was telling me to go straight. I don't even remember which one it was, but I'm going straight, and this isn't even the route that I wrote down, so I have absolutely no idea where I am, and I'm just like so confused, so frustrated. I'm wondering like, am I ever gonna actually get to work, and what am I gonna say to my boss when I get there? Like, am I gonna get fired? I don't know. So I just kept driving, and I was thinking about like how stupid this situation was. I'm wondering like, okay, there's no way this can get any stupider than it already is. So that's when I got to a red light, and I stop at the red light, and there's a person in a convertible next to me, and there's like a few trucks behind him. I don't know what caused this, but the guy in the convertible is like yelling at the people in the trucks. I'm like, wait, what happened? Like, why are they yelling at each other? I'd never seen this happen before while I was driving, and I suddenly just found myself in the middle of this fight about to happen at a red light. So I was just really confused. I'm like, come on, the light has to turn green now, right? I really don't want to like witness a fight. The light just wasn't turning. So the guy in the convertible, he's getting really mad, and he actually like opens the door to his car. He gets out, walks towards the trucks and he just like starts cussing them out. One person was saying like, pull over in the parking lot, we are gonna fight. And I was just like so confused, like what is going on here? Like, of all times for this to happen, why? The guy in the convertible had a kid in the car with him, like in the passenger seat. He looked like 14 or 15. I made eye contact with the kid and he's just looking at me. We both kind of had like terrified looks. But finally the light turned green and I was able to just drive away from that as fast as I could. I have no idea what happened with the fight, but the convertible didn't go forward, so maybe they fought. Finally, at about 5:45, I get to a road, and both robot voices tell me that I need to turn left here. So I'm like, okay, this is the school. I'm here. Thank God. I park my car. I'm like, yes, I'm here. I go up to the door, and I try to open it, and it's locked. I'm like, well, dang. So I start texting that person from the company who was texting me. I say like, hey, I'm here. Where do I need to go? So I don't get a reply immediately, and I'm just kind of standing there. I'm like, oh no, do they even like know I'm here? So I finally decide to call. On like the 7th ring, the person picked up, and I'm like, hello, I'm here. And it's basically an hour late at this point. And then he's like, oh, where are you? I'm like, I'm at the front door. And he says like, I'm also at the front door. And I look around, I don't see anybody. Like, well, I guess I'm in the wrong place. So he tells me to circle around the school and he'll meet me at the actual front door, because apparently I'd somehow managed to go to the back of the school. I don't know how. So I got back in my car and I tried to look for a way to drive around to get to the back of the school. I looped around the parking lot like 5 times before I actually figured out how to go back there. I finally end up on like a street, and this looks like the front entrance. So I see a sign that says main entrance, and behind the sign I see, kind of in the distance, I see someone wearing the same company uniform that I'm wearing, and he's kind of like looking at his phone and kind of looking around. I'm like, oh wait, is that the guy who's been calling me? I'm like, wow, this is the person who's been calling me. I finally know who it is. So while I was distracted, I actually completely drove by the main entrance, and I'm like, oh no, I don't even know how to go back around. So I'm like, okay, whatever the next turn is, I'm going to take it. So the next turn says exit only. So I was like, you know what? I have to do this or I'm gonna get fired from my job. So I kind of thought like, okay, you know what, it's just an exit. There's like not really anyone here, so no one's gonna be here, right? So I turned into the exit only. It just so happened that there were 2 cars actually using that exit at the same time I was using the exit as an entrance, and I was able to squeeze by them, but I saw the people in there just kind of staring at me like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I didn't even care. I was just like so happy that I'd actually made it to where I was supposed to be. So I parked and I got out and I go up to this guy who I'd never even met before. Like, his first impression of me was this. This whole time I'd been kind of like preparing the story and like how I was going to explain like what happened, and you know, I had it all planned. So I said like, hey, I'm sorry I'm late, I was stuck in traffic, and he kind of like cuts me off. He's just like, okay, we need to go in now. And I'm like, oh no, he doesn't even want to hear it, he must be mad. So I try to bring it up again. I'm like, the traffic was really bad, and I took a few wrong turns, I'm really sorry. But he's just like, it's okay. But the tone in his voice said it was not okay. So finally, he like leads me to the auditorium where I need to be filming in, and the cameras are all already set up, so someone had to do my job for me because I was late. So I got there like just before the show started. Luckily, I did get there, and I actually didn't hear anything back from the company at all. No one really reprimanded me. At least I got a funny story out of it. But yeah, that's what happened. That's how I was an hour late to work. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you want more real life stories like this one. Hopefully it wasn't too long. So yeah, bye.